So we're going to start working on our title block so that our drawings look like an official technical drawing. And what we're actually going to do, we're also going to make sure that after we set up our title block, we're going to set up our drawing just the way we want it, and we're going to save it as a template so that every time we open up or start a new drawing, we will use that template, and all of our drawings will have our title block, we'll have our name, we'll have all the information, and it'll finally look like a technical drawing. So this is roughly what it's going to look like. We're going to change this or modify this slightly. All right, but basically we're looking to create a 5-inch by 1-inch rectangle. All right, so I'm going to move this window off to the side a bit. Actually, I'll just minimize it. So I'm going to hit this little minus sign. There we go. Don't need that. And so where do we start? I'm going to start just like we usually do, using the ACAD template. Okay, and there's a couple of ways to do this. We can actually draw it here in our model space and then copy and paste it over, or we can draw it right in our layout. All right, so it really doesn't matter. What I'll do temporarily is I'm going to left click once on the viewport, and I'm just going to lift it up and kind of get it out of the way just a little bit. Then I'm going to hit escape. All right, so now I have a clean surface to work from. And the first thing that I'm going to do, well, first let's set up our layers. That's probably the best thing to do. So I'm going to click on layer properties, and I'm going to select layer 1, and layer 1 will be our center layer. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create one at a time and expand this a little bit so we can see the elements that we need to see, which is line weights, line types, and color. Okay, so my center, we'll start with color. Center color is going to be, let's make it like a magenta, and click OK. The line type, I have to switch to a center, so I need to load a center line type by clicking load and finding center. Now again, there are 3 different centers here, and I am going to use, I'm just going to use center 0.5, right? So center 2, and hit OK. Make sure that I select center 2 and hit OK again. Line weight, we're going to use 0.30 millimeters, and I'm going to hit OK. So I have to remember that because everything else is going to be, well, everything else will be 0.30. Our visible line, our object line, is going to be 0.60, right? Because everything is a 2-to-1 ratio for our thick and thin lines. So then I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to say object. Right? That's our object line or visible line. So this is what mainly my drawing is going to look like. And I'm going to do this either in like a blue or a green. So blue looks good. And the line type is continuous, so I'm just going to switch over to the continuous and hit OK. I don't have to load anything. And this one, the line weight is going to double to 0.60 and click OK. All right, we're on our way. New layer. This time we're going to have a hidden layer. And my hidden layer, let's make red. And again, you can choose your own colors for this. And line type should be hidden. We don't have hidden in the list, so I have to load it in by clicking load. And we're going to use hidden 2, try to keep things somewhat consistent. And once I select it, click it again and hit OK. And line weight again is going to be 0.30. So everything from here on just about with one or two exceptions, should be 0.30 millimeters or half of your object line. And that goes for almost for all standards, really. Your object line should be the thickest, essentially, line in the drawing, and everything else should be half of that. Okay, so we've got object, we've got center, we've got hidden. Let's throw in construction. Okay, so we've got a construction line. And the construction line, we'll make yellow. And we'll make it continuous. So nothing to load, just have to pick the right one. And this one actually I will make a little bit thinner. I'll do a 0.13 just so that there's an obvious tell that it is a construction line. And it'll be bright enough to see. The yellow won't show up in white, which is fine because construction lines will usually we'll hide that layer before we actually print, so that's okay. Okay, couple more layers to do here. So new layer. We've got center, object, hidden, construction. We need a dimension layer. Okay. And make sure that you spell dimensions correctly, right? It's some people spell it with the T. It is not the disease. We are talking about dimensions or annotations, okay? So make sure you spell that right. Spelling does count in drafting, believe it or not, because your drawings become a legal document. So dimensioning, let's do dimensions in, it's going to be let's do a nice blue here. One of those two blues I think should be good. Okay, so, and that stays continuous, and the dimensions should be in 0.30. I'll drop it down to 0.25 just to give a little bit of a difference there. All right, so now we've got our center line, object line, hidden line, construction line, dimension lines. Click on a new layer, and we're going to throw in a phantom. All right, phantom line, just in case we need it. And the phantom line will make like a purple line. And for that one, under the line type, I will have to load in the phantom line type. So I'm going to scroll down, and we'll use phantom 2, again, just to be consistent all across the board, and then make sure to select it again before hitting OK. And this one, again, 0.30, everything should be 0.30 just about. We got most of our line types, and I'm going to do couple more. This next one, last one is going to be, not last one, but this next one is going to be TitleBlock. So, and again, all of these are going to be in your template, and you can always add, not necessarily to the template, but you can add to your drawing and make it custom every single time. But at least you'll have this starting set to keep you going. All right, so my title block, let's make this one a green. And we want to make sure that this is a continuous line type. All right. And we need a border. And I'll explain that in a moment. So we need a border line type. I'm going to keep that the same color. It is going to be continuous. However, the only difference is the line weight. We're actually going to beef this up. And we're going to make the line weight 0.90. Okay, nice and thick. And I'll explain the reason in a moment. Last one here for now. Last layer is going to be VP. All right, that stands for viewport. And the viewport layer we are going to make, we'll go down to this section here for the index colors, and we'll make it that nice magenta color and hit OK. And the VP layer should be continuous, and the VP layer we can make 0.30, a thinner line type. Now the only thing that we're going to add is that we're going to hit the little printer icon right? I just expanded that a little bit so I can see, but we're going to hit the no plot. So the viewport layer, the VP layer, is not going to print. All right, so we've got all of our layers: object, center, object, hidden, construction, dimensions, phantom, title block, border, viewport. Some people add in other things like text, but for right now, this will be sufficient. So I'm just going to hit the left X. Everything is loaded up. And in my paper space here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to left click once on my viewport, and I'm going to go up to my layers and I'm going to place it on my viewport layer. If you hit escape, you'll see that now it has taken on that viewport section. If I go into print, right, pretending that I'm going to be plotting, go to general documentation and preview, you will see that nothing shows up. So because that layer does not plot anymore, it's going to give us a clean drawing, and therefore we need a border so to make it look, really nice. So I'm going to hit cancel here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to left click once, and I'm going to expand down just a little bit because I still want to be able to draw my my title block. Okay, so that's good for right now, and I'm going to hit escape. I'm keeping the grid in there just so that it's a little bit more obvious to see. And I'm going to zoom into the bottom right hand corner, and I'm going to change my layers to title block, and I'm going to use the rectangle tool, and it doesn't matter where because we're going to move everything anyhow. So I'm going to start by left clicking, dragging my mouse, and I'm going to set this to 5 inches, hit the tab key, 1 inch, and hit enter. All right, so now I've got a space to work with. And if we take a look really quick at what it is that we're going to be drawing, so we're going to be splitting that in half, and the top half will be taken up by the title, and then the bottom half will be taken up by other information. And again, we can make the adjustments as we see fit. So going to my line tool, I have my midpoint active. If you don't have your midpoint active, you can shift right click, or you can go down to your O snaps and make your midpoint active in your O snap setup. So do that one more time. So there's my midpoint, left click, drag, and left click. And I'm going to need another line in between here, and I'll show you how I deal with that, because this is not a midpoint because this is still one line segment. Okay, so I'm going to shift right click, and I'm going to say mid between 2 points, and I'm going to start from the middle here as click 1, and the bottom is click 2, and that places my line right at the midpoint of those 2 points. So I'm going to come over, and there's a parallel snap, left click, and that looks good. And let's take a look one more time. So we're dividing almost in half. Looking at the dimensions, so about, let's say, 1.5 inches. We can make those lines 2.5 to 2 inches to 1.5 inches. All right, so I have a better idea of what we need to do. All right, now that that I've got this, I'm going to take a line, and I will draw halfway from midpoint to midpoint and hit escape. And the little box that you saw, the revision box, we're not going to really worry about too much. And I'm going to draw, you hit the space bar one more time, and I'm going to draw another line down to the bottom. And this time I'm going to use the offset. So I click on the offset button, and I'm going to just shift the line to the left and to the right slightly. So if this is 5 inches all the way across, that means that our line is currently here at 2.5 inches. So I want to do about an inch, right? So 1 inch, enter. And I'm going to click on the bottom line to the left and that bottom middle line and go to the right, hit escape, and then I'm going to select and delete that middle line. So I should have something like this. Okay. Now at this point, we have to add some labels, and I know we haven't talked about text too much, but we have the text button with multi-line and single line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on multi-line text, and I'm going to drag out a little box, left click, and just try to follow along as best as you can. I'll go slow. So for this, I'm going to say title, and I want to write it all caps. And then I'm going to left click outside of that text field, and that will kind of secure my text. Left click once on the text, and then there's a square grip, and again, you might have your ortho on or off, so you might want to turn it off. That's F8, and you can place your title there, hitting escape to get out of it. Okay, one more time, we're going to hit the letter A and drag a text box. And before we start typing, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up into the text style manager, and I'm going to highlight that point 2, and I'm going to say point 100 and hit enter, and that'll make our text a little bit smaller. And I'm going to write my name, and I'm going to left click outside, select my name, hit that grip, and I'm going to place it in this box like so. And I'm going to do one more that's going to be slightly smaller. I'm going to hit the A, drag out a text box, and this time instead of point 1, I'm going to highlight the point 2 up there, and I'm going to make it 0.08 and hit enter. And I'm going to type the word name with a colon and left click outside, select it once, grab the box, and this is where OSNAPs might get a little finicky, so I'm going to zoom in and go right into the corner, but I don't want the snap. So if you need to, you can hit F3 to not worry about the snaps. And okay, we've got all 3 elements, 3 different sizes here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to use the copy tool. So click once on copy, click on name once, and then right click or hit enter. And I'm specifying a base point, and I probably want to zoom in using my scroll wheel, and that top left corner is what I'm looking for. And I am going to basically go into every corner, again trying not to get on the lines, but very close to. And you notice how I'm zooming in and out, and that way I can make sure that I am close to the line without snapping to those corners. And I think there's one more here. There we are, and hit escape. All right, so now that we have names everywhere, it should be pretty easy. Now you're going to double left click on each of these names, right? And the thing to be careful is if you double left click in the middle of the name, right, in the empty space here, you're not going to select the name. So you want to make sure that highlights or darkens a little bit, and it double left click. And then from that point, you can highlight all the text and say title and left click outside the text. Now what we're doing is we're providing placeholders and labels for all of our sections. Okay, so it can't be just willy-nilly. You have to actually label everything. So the second name down, and we're all using capitalized text. This is going to be drawing number. And when you're done, left click outside. And this one is going to be, actually this is one of the ones, sorry, I'm going to left click outside of that. This one I'm going to delete, and we'll put our school name there. But first let's finish the rest of these. So this one is going to be the date. Left click outside, and the last one will be scale. Okay, so we've got our placeholders, we've got most of our text in here. Then I'm going to select my name. So again, copy, select my name, right click or hit enter, and that's going to a node, so I'm going to just click on that and make sure that I can control it no problem. And I'm going to place drawing number here. I will place my name there, here, and lastly here. Hitting escape to get out of it. And double left click on the text, and I'm just going to put the pound sign, which is shift number 3, so that I can place my drawing number when I need to. This bottom left one I'm going to highlight, and I'm going to say Hudson Valley CC, and I can left click on it, and I'm going to just nudge it, so that's control and the arrow keys, and I can just kind of move that around a little bit, hit escape to get out of that. Date, right, we're going to use we'll use today's date. So and I like writing everything internationally, so I'm going to say 14 Sep 2020, so the international standard. And then finally scale, we're going to start by saying it's 1:1, right? 1 to 1. And left click outside. So we've just completed our title block. We've got placeholders. We've got some other information in here. This will be something that you use every single time. And you're actually going to double click on some of the text, like the scale and the date and the title, to change that for every single drawing. All right, so what do we do now? Well, now we'll do it this way to keep it easy. I'm going to left click, drag around everything that we just created, and I'm going to hold Control and the down arrow key, and we're just going to slide that down. And then I'm going to left click once on my viewport, and I'm going to click it down and make sure to drag it right close to the inside part of the border line. Okay, and I'm going to double left click inside and turn off my grid, which is down on the bottom, and I'm going to double left click on the outside on the gray spot. So last thing now, well, a couple more things actually. I'm going to draw another box, but this time I'm going to go to the border layer, and I'm going to use the box tool, and I want to start pretty much at where the viewport is, maybe a little bit on the inside. And you'll notice that I'm not seeing a difference in line weights. That's because my line weights are turned off. I have that down here. If you do not have this, then what you need to do is you need to go to the customization section and check on line weights, then go back to turn off the customization, and then you should have that icon there. So here we're just going to check out, make sure that we are not crossing over that dashed line. That looks good. All right, and now I'm going to do a window over my entire title block, and we're going to use the Move tool, which we're going to be learning more about. So I'm going to click Move tool, and it's asking me to specify a base point, so I'm going to do the bottom left corner. I see my O snap, and now I can move it. Again, if your ortho is on, it might restrict you with your movements. And I'm going to go to the bottom left corner here, and the snap, I should snap in. There you go, left click. So I shouldn't see any kind of gap. So now this is what my title block looks like. This is what my border looks like. If I were to go to print right now, go to general documentation and just do a preview. A little bit off center, right? So we have to change that with our settings if you recall. I don't know if there's a difference if I do the high quality print. Okay, so I need to change my X and Y. But you'll notice that it's a clean print. Okay, so the viewport will not plot, so therefore we have to have that border line. Okay, and all of this is on top of our viewport. Our viewport is hidden, not hidden, but it's underneath. Okay, so I'm just going to expand this a little bit more just so I can see it if I ever need to, if I need to grab it. Okay, so we've got our layers, we've got our title block. I'm going to go back into model space, and I want to change my model space from, or my layers rather, from border to object line. So therefore every time I come in, it's already set drawing with the object line color. Actually, one more thing, we'll set up our layout. We have to set up our printer a little bit more permanently for this layout 1 page. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hover over the layout 1 tab, and I'm going to right click, not a left click, but a right click, and I want to go to Page Setup Manager. And when I left click on Page Setup Manager, I get this window, and I'm going to click Modify. And this is where we're going to set up our drawings. So I'm going to click on the plotter name, and I'm going to go down to the General Documentation, PDF. We've got our full bleed. I'm going to change my plot style table to monochrome. And before I do the preview, I already know I have to change this up a little bit. So I think, let me try 0.25 by 0.25. I think that's what we did in the other video. And I'm going to do a quick preview, and that looks great. So that is perfect. That's exactly the way that I want it. So 1/4 inch X and Y offset. Everything else here stays the same, and I click on OK. And I'm going to close. Then I'm going to go back to my model space. And this should be all set, but in case it's not, just hit Z, Enter, E, Enter. And that should take you back to the original settings. And now to save it as a template. Okay, right now, I know it's a little hard to see this little, there we go. We've got drawing number 1. So we want to turn this into a template. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on my save. Okay, and as I click on the save, I'm not going to worry about changing the name just yet because I have to change the file of type. So changing the file of type, I want to save this as a template file. So I'm going to go down into the middle of my list and say AutoCAD Drawing Template. Select it. When I do that, it throws me into AutoCAD's template folder. Okay, so this is where AutoCAD stores all of the templates, and you can see all the different template files in here. And I'm going to name this one as PF 2020, just so that I know that this is my personal template. And then I'm going to do _ inch. All right, because later on we're going to do a conversion and create a metric template that'll be separate. So this will be PF 2020 inch, right? So Peter Phil, my first name, last name, or first initial, last initial, the year, and inches. And then I'm going to hit save. When I do that, it's just giving me a confirmation, making sure that my measurements are in English, imperial, and not metric. And I'm going to hit OK. We should now see PF 2020 inch.dwt. You're obviously going to see your initials, and everything is all set. Now, for the test, I'm going to hit X and close out save changes. Sure, I'll save changes to the template. Nothing really changed there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my template folder here, my template list, and I'm going to go down until I see PF 2020 inch. That should be in your list .dwt. When I left click on it to open that, you'll notice now that the top says drawing. Right? So we're using our template to create a drawing, and the beautiful thing is now that we have all of our layers, and if we go to layout 1, we have our title block and information in paper space. So from here on out, this is what you guys will be using to create all of your exercises. And that's it. Good job.